Now live. Mari, can you control also the camera? Good evening. Welcome to the Digital Innovation Pavilion at the UN Climate Conference COP28. My name is Miroslav Polzer. I'm with the Climate Change Coalition, the world's leading network of organizations which are looking how to use Web3 technologies, emerging technologies in general to advance global climate action, global multi-stakeholder climate action. And today we are delighted to have as guests the winners of the UAE Techsprint competition, one of the leading initiatives in this emerging technologies field of the UAE COP28 presidency, and delighted to learn about the solutions that you have identified and awarded. So please take the floor, whoever is there to lead.
Hello. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks for finding your way here because I know COP28 is not the easiest place to find your way around. So thanks for coming and joining us. We have a panel of around 20 minutes with Benedict Nolans from the BIS Innovation Hub Hong Kong Center. She's the head there. And also Porya Salehi from the ICLE, head of urban research, development and innovation. And we also have Caitlin Nash, the co-founder of GIIG Africa. So let's start our panel. Okay. Yeah, okay. So just a word about the COP28 UAE Techsprint. We just announced the winner earlier today, and the three winners are here to present their winning solutions. And Benedict, would you mind to tell us a little bit about the background of COP28 UAE Techsprint?
Okay, hello everyone. So as Teresa introduced, we did this joint tech sprint across the Central Bank of the UAE and also the BIS, which is the Bank for International Settlements, and we represent the central banking community. So we are an organization of 63 of the world's leading central banks. And then the COP28, we focused on three types of technologies, in particular AI for artificial intelligence, blockchain, as often linked to the carbon markets, and thirdly, sensor technologies and satellite technologies. We had a total of 126 applicants for this tech sprint, and we shortlisted 15 of those 126 applicants. They were from, I believe, 31 countries around the world, so a very solid geographic representation. And we just posted this afternoon our BIS website, the report that lists the 15 shortlisted across these three problem statements of AI, blockchain, and then sensor and satellite related technologies. So for anybody interested in the space, please do take a look at the report because we presented every single solution, including the team, the number of people, the funding, the investors, and of course, the nature of the solution. So we also added actually a criteria which is new on gender diversity, because often with technology startups, one thing we're seeing is that there is a very high concentration in male management as opposed to a nice split with female and male. So that criterion you will see in the report as well. So that is my introduction, and I pass it back to you, Teresa.
Thank you, Benedict. Caitlin, you were amongst our esteemed panel of judges. We had 15 of them. And do you mind to tell us a little bit about what you learned throughout the Techsprint process?
So thank you very much. Hello to this audience here. I must say I found the whole experience inspiring. And inspiring not just because of working with incredibly ambitious, driven tech founders, but to look at organizations such as ICLE and BIS and the COP28 presidency. And it takes vision to be able to lead, to say, now let's bring together the innovators on the ground, the big business, the private sector, the government. And I feel that this COP28 Techsprint is quite a statement to say we're ready to take action and to do something about it. In terms of the actual technologies we reviewed, I think there's this incredible saying that says, if it is too heavy to lift, you're solving the right problem. And I thought that a lot of the companies were lifting very heavy problems. We saw really good solutions around parametric insurance. I would say it was difficult to really clearly see who was better or who wasn't, because they were on their own journey, and the competition was excellent and the quality of the applicants was exceptionally high. But if we're looking at how we're going to unlock climate financing to help cities and companies move through that transition, we within the sector that I was on, which is IoT, we looked specifically at someone who'd be able to provide that data. And I think when we're looking at from a financing perspective, you're wanting to see the data to inform your decisions, and you're wanting to see the roadmap of where you're going and how to get there. And for us, we were very fortunate to have found a winner within our selection. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Caitlin. So collaboration is key from what you're saying. Porya, you are also amongst one of our judges. Do you mind to share about what you learned throughout the Techsprint?
Thank you so much, Teresa, and good afternoon, everyone. I think I was very lucky to be part of this journey. Oftentimes we talk about collaboration and we talk about innovative approaches and enabling environment and empowerment. And I think what happened here, we shouldn't take light of it, is CB UAE led by example by contributing to this initiative, and with BIS launched something that sort of collected the existing solutions that exist out there. Earlier this afternoon, we were on a panel with Benedict, and one of the audience was asking, what is the solution about if we need to design solutions? Solutions out not really match make them with the existing demands and problems or put them at a scale that is needed. And for me, it was really heartwarming to see, as someone who's working at the interface of policy and practice, to see that some national agencies step into space to help solution providers deliver their solutions, showcase, bringing visibility to them. And of course, as someone who's working with cities, I'm really interested to see the connection between those solutions to city. What, for example, Gig is doing in Africa is amazing, bringing different solutions and matching them with the demand owners, and at the same time, those actors that can empower them, incubators. And obviously, that's a mandate of the innovation hub of Bank for International Settlements to sort of find the niche solutions and showcase the leading one, initiate one. And I was very impressed by the solutions, particularly the track blockchain one that I was part of the jury. I think it was really hard to choose which one is the best one. It was really hard. And I would say like the one that won was like edging the other ones, just like with a tad. It was really inspiring to see we have a lot of great solutions out there. It's like on us, how we can empower them, support them, bring visibility, provide pathways and infrastructure to scale these solutions and ensure that they are implemented to the scale and the speed that we need. We shouldn't take light of this. We know that everyone is talking about global climate fund, billions of dollars, but the reality is only 10% of that fund is reaching to local governments. And for us, it's really important to look into this wonderful curated selection of solutions. Each of them have really this replication potential to be applied in the context of cities and ensure that they can facilitate access of local governments to financial resources, which is key to mobilize other resources for climate action and sustainability. Put a pause here, and thank you so much for having me here. Back to yourself, Thursday.
Thank you, Porya. That touches a really important point of what's going to happen after the COP28 UAE Techsprint. So what are we going to do to scale these technological solutions? Caitlin, maybe you can share your thoughts first.
So in terms of directly this Techsprint and next steps within this process, I think I'll leave that to Benedict and the team who have organized it. I think I would say that whether you were a winner or a participant or a judge or just an interested party member, it is crucial to take up these opportunities. I don't want to sit here and lobby, but yesterday I was in a session where Hillary Clinton spoke, and she spoke about the fact that climate financing shouldn't just solve climate project problems. It has the opportunity to solve so many problems, to solve joblessness at the same time, to do digital reskilling at the same time, to do cross-border collaboration. And I think what the solutions within the Techsprint bring is a level of automation and alignment and accuracy that is needed. And the sooner we can do those tasks quickly, the sooner we can focus our energies as humans and professionals on other tasks. So a lot of the solutions we saw coming through the door were no-brainers. And it's going to take public sector and private sector to back them and scale them and then use data intelligently. So what I hope comes out of this is that the visibility that these solutions have gotten, all 15, attract the correct partners to help them scale. I hope that they use this award and this visibility in a way that they drive that agenda forward, and that they can promote the fact that there are credible professional leaders who are saying we need this solution. In terms of who's going to commit to using them, funding them, I think that's a conversation that should be taken into action the next few days. But that's where we are. We have a short list, and anyone who's part of it needs to drive that agenda forward.
Thank you, Caitlin. What about Benedict? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm conscious that we started this panel a few minutes late, so I suggest that we maybe turn it. Yeah. Okay. But in any case, I think the key is we need to leave it to the startups to present their solutions. Yeah, from my side, I don't want to comment on funding, because the BIS does not provide funding to the private sector in that sense. We play a catalyst role. As you can see, we have given the opportunity to these startups to profile themselves. The stage we were at was as big as you can get here at COP, so with 1,400 people in the audience there. So I think it's now up to the startups really to scale themselves and make sure that they focus properly on getting funding and getting their solutions in front of the right people. So any thoughts?
Oh, thank you so much. I know, like, Benedict is a little bit frustrated about you started late, but Miro was kind enough to let us run a few minutes later than the time. Thank you so much, Miro, for the stage. This is wonderful. I think, as Caitlin mentioned, like, obviously this is not something for me to comment as a partner, just organizing, promoting this tech, but not an organizer, obviously. But I believe, like, it's just take the example of a community. Within a community, not every household does everything. They don't produce food and electricity and solve all the problems at the same time. I think what Central Bank of UAE and the Bank for International Settlements did was a huge step. They did their share, they did their cut, and that was wonderful. And it's now up to solution providers, as Benedict said, but also other actors, how to leverage those solutions. And moving forward, I think to the point that Caitlin, you mentioned, it's really important to for the solution providers to leverage this visibility, but at the same time for the catalytic organizations such as our organization to see how best we can take this to the next step. In light of that, we would love to explore the existing solutions, how best we can sort of take these to cities and other actors within local governments, how they can use it as a menu of choices in different contexts, and which of those solutions are fitting in which region to solve what problem. That's something that we would love to work on that and make sure we serve actors at the local and subnational level with those solutions, being aware that there are limitations, obviously, and at the same time, there are opportunities. So I'm again excited to really listen and learn about the 3 winning solutions again here. And hopefully they are inspiring enough for others to take actions, but also for the other potential end users to reach out to them and knowing that this is going to be televised, and then take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Poria. Do we have time or shall we move on to the winning solutions? Yeah, maybe we should to winning solutions. Okay, let's move on to the winning solutions presentation. Okay.
Did you send to?
Okay. 1 second. I'm just gonna put up the presentation.
I'm happy to make some comments while we do that. I do love tech events that have tech problems. It's my favorite, and it happens at every event I go to, right? I don't think I've ever been to one where there wasn't a problem. Last month I was in Ethiopia. We hosted, so I'm the co-founder of the Global Startup Awards Africa, and we were in Ethiopia, and it was a significant milestone in their national entrepreneurial journey. And this is almost what I want to say to the winners and to the partners is, there are continents transforming. We're not talking about a company. We're not talking about a country. There are continents transforming who will need these types of technologies just to cope with the sheer scale of the transformation. But even when we were on that stage, the electricity cut out. And it was such a huge event. And everybody was absolutely mortified, especially the organizers. And when I got on stage, I said, well, there's nothing like authentic hospitality, because I come from South Africa where we're having a significant energy crisis. So having no energy made me feel at home immediately. But what I have seen just in terms of trends that are happening is that, data is power and automation is power. And I think we're in an era of radical collaboration and extreme humanism. And these technologies, from a frontier technology point of view, a Web3 technology point of view, AI, automation, while there is this sort of resistance or these collaboration barriers between private, public, and sector that seem to be delaying the acceleration of implementation, I think that ironically they're exactly the type of technologies that will move us forward into a deeper sense of humanity. So for everyone who is listening or part of this or interested, this revolution is going to happen. It's going to happen whether you're part of it or not. This is just a perfect platform for everyone to get involved.
Thank you very much, speakers. We'll have the presentation for the winning solutions now. How do I move it? Is there a clicker for the presentation? Right, this is an Intensol for problem statement 1, which is AI.
Okay, so welcome again, and pleasure to be here and explain actually what we do after collecting the award. So you'll understand what we do, why we do it, and how we do it in a couple of minutes. So Intensol is an AI. Of course, AI was used as a buzzword, but it is truly an AI-powered platform for climate adaptation. Without the use of AI and technology, big data, and machine learning, and terabytes of data you need to train the models, you just can't bring these solutions in the market. You cannot run an Excel spreadsheet to offer these solutions. But it is only a tool. So what did we build the platform for? Well, given the background, given that we've been in the markets, part of our team been in the market for 20 plus in ESG and sustainability, there is a sense of frustration that we talk about mitigation too much. We should talk about mitigation and adaptation. But to have adaptation, you need data, you need transparency, you need to know where and how and what to do in that specific location. We talk about climate risk, and it's mainly spoken in 2030, 2050, sea level rise, etc., which gives some misconception in the market that this is a problem we deal in the future. Right now, just let's cut carbon, which is important, but climate change is already here and is already happening in many places. Even world-class cities such as Hong Kong, with a world-class infrastructure of flood, cannot deal with black rain storms. The next slide, please. Secondly, most important point is that climate change and these events are happening in places which did not happen before. So that's in Fujairah. Excuse me if I don't pronounce it very well. That's a flood simulation where was flood in June 2022. Can I close this one? No, it's not that. So this is what happened in 2022. It was massive floods, cars, and massive damages on the properties as well as vehicles, etc. This can be already simulated. You don't have to wait for the events to happen to observe these floods. We already do that globally. We already know which are the location, and that's a flood simulation of these locations already in advance. So that's on a more district level, and this is in a higher resolution. We can move to the next slide. Why don't we really see these solutions in the market? It's very simple. Number one, climate change is making existing climate models obsolete. We need to run dynamic climate models. We need to run forward-looking climate models. And that's something the insurance industry is not yet ready. Number two, the resolution is very poor. In many of the providers, they take very very coarse resolution, meaning they're dealing with 10 kilometers, 1 kilometer resolution. That does not tell you too much on the asset level damage. It's good to know on a high level, but to take measures of that specific asset, you need high resolution data. It takes time. Many providers, they will take months or a year to publish a report, which by the time it's published is already obsolete. And lastly is a black box. And so I was today in another event, and that's a key problem with physical climate risk assessment. You don't see what drives the result. Is it the hazard, the weather event, or is the location of the asset, or is the value of the asset, and how is it made and how is it used? So the next slide. If you click one more, that will be a video. So we took the approach of mapping physical climate risk on the asset level. So we want to understand the climate risk. What if we can price already in advance the climate risk, not just for your portfolio, but every single asset? And what if you identify already prior to event, where are the risks and where are the opportunities? The video, yeah, you can see. So that's Hong Kong. This is 0.5 meter resolution storm surge at 4 meters wave. The higher the resolution, the better, because then you can account for man-made structures. Okay. The next slide, please. So what do we do? Well, we operate with multiple models. We operate with the climate models, insurance models, financial models, by leveraging, of course, on the AI, but most importantly, we have to overlay not just climate data, but we have to overlay them with socioeconomic data. We have to overlay this with topography, high resolution topography data, building specific characteristics, building financials data, stress test them across different time horizon, different temperature scenarios, and map it into a dollar loss, so a financial dollar loss. And we do so for 10 climate hazards, which are shown here. Despite the complexity of the problem, despite the complexity of the product, we deliver this product in a very user-friendly format, because from the end user perspective, they don't have to run the dynamic climate model. All they need to understand is what are my risks at that location and how can I take the next step. The next slide, please. Thank you. In a nutshell, the solution is broken in 3 parts: hazard, exposure, vulnerability. Hazard is the climate, and that's where the climate modeling comes. The exposure is understanding what kind of asset you are analyzing, given the location, how is it made, how is it built, what is it used for, how much of that you own, etc., etc. And vulnerability is given from the asset level data, but mapped to the hazard level. Without having strong data on the hazard, you can't get to the dollar loss. Otherwise, the data will not be good enough. We deliver both damage to the physical asset as well as business interruption. These are very important. If you are a supply chain, if you look at a supply chain risk, you are interested in a business interruption. If you are an asset owner, you are interested in the damage on the physical asset. Maybe the next slide. We can skip this one. That's the complexity of the model, which makes it very difficult sometimes to push this product to the market without having to have some education upfront. It's getting easier as the years goes by, but to really make the user comfortable with the data we deliver, it takes time. And we need to work together with the other market players to build the awareness of what they get and how they can use. Maybe the next slide. The beauty of this product is that it can be used for different aspects. It can be used for, of course, reporting and risk assessment, which is a very primary use. But most importantly, it can be used for due diligence, pre and post investment. It can be used for adaptation and resilience planning. That's where we push more for application of this product, because we tell the user how much flood do you have to allocate at that location. Where is the water coming from, north and south? What are your existing mitigation in place, and how you can deal with this hazard? The last one is supply chain risk management, meaning mapping your supply chain, not just on scope 3, but mapping your supply chain on the risks that you are exposed to because of the location, because of extreme heat, impact on productivity loss, etc., etc. And we see the users mainly in 3 sectors: so financial industry, so asset owners, asset management industry, banking industry, as well as insurance. They're all bundled here. The second part is real estate owners, and the third is manufacturing and utilities. We work with leaders in the industry to push the product by increasing the awareness. So we've worked with CLSA and showcasing how we can integrate this data and equity research. We've worked with Property Guru, showcasing the impact of climate hazard on valuation, property valuation in Malaysia. We worked with ING Bank assets in their portfolio, or risk asset of real assets and infrastructure. And we worked with Cornell University and Schroders on mapping the supply chain for Southeast Asia. So these are some of the white papers I've released, beyond working, of course, with partners to push this product in the market. And beside that, we have clients across multiple industries, which I mentioned before. Next slide, please. This is just a simple showcase. We'll look at an area, we'll map that area for the hazard risk, whether it is rainfall flood, river flood, landslide, etc. We'll give them a heat map of locations and specific exposure to hazard, whether it is extreme heat or snow melt or typhoon or storm surge. So understanding the risk and then taking measure of this risk of these specific assets. We'll map them into the hazard and show them exactly how much the projection, what is the projection in terms of unit, not just high and medium and low, but we'll give them the unit of that particular climate hazard so they can really take action on this. That's how we call it, is actionable insights, data which give you insight for a further use. And then we map that in dollar loss and stress test it. Maybe the next slide. Bottom line is we talk about adaptation finance, and that's what COP is about. Why we don't see so much on adaptation finance? One of the key reasons is we lack the data. We don't understand how much loss we can avoid at a particular location because we don't know the risk we're facing at a particular location. If we're able to measure and price it, then we can have a better channel on the financial of the funding in the financial industry. I think that's intensive in a kind of a couple of minutes, and I leave the stage to questions. Yes,
Dr. Endel,
yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very insightful. I have a question on your target clientele. So you talked about financial services, insurance, banking, real estate, and manufacturing supply chain. Now, these are very different sectors with very different needs as well. Going forward, do you see yourself doubling down into one or more of these sectors, or do you see yourself being broad and more opportunistic across these sectors?
a very good question. We get it very often, especially from investors, because they want to see verticals. Initially, we went horizontal because we deliver the same data, it's the same platform to multiple users. And we want to see how each vertical is using the data, which data points are most important for them. And the next stage we plan is breaking down this platform in multiple products and then targeting in terms of price and making it more tailor-made. But first we have to understand what data are they looking for, what data is most important for them. Yeah. Our objective is financial industry because that's where the risks are concentrated. That's where they have more higher frequency of using the data. That's where you understand the data, so they understand the data, and that the climate finance attached to it and insurance premiums and valuation. I mean, I come from financial industry, so for me, valuation is a key driver in the market for this. Yeah. That's it. I'll pass to the.
Any more questions? Maybe we need 2 more minutes before we start the.
Oh, okay, I can take any question.
I think it's fortuitous that I can ask a question. So coming from Africa, where we know that emerging countries will bear the brunt of a lot of the impacts of climate change, have you extended there? How does, I'm thinking you're very focused on the financial sector, but I look at this even just from a disaster resilience point of view. There are many stakeholders in this, and almost once they become aware of the risk, the question is who's going to mitigate that risk. I'd just like to know, you've obviously been down this road for many years, and how you see it playing out.
So bringing these solutions to governments, communities, for addressing the community-related issues at that is key. But for us as a company, as a startup, we don't have the luxury of waiting for months until the process gets going and working with the government. And if you are small at the beginning, you are not. You need to come faster in the market. But that's what we had a discussion in United Nations before the IMO. I think it's immigration or migrant movements or something related to that. So they are interested in understanding where which are the most vulnerable communities and where, and what kind of risk are they exposed to. So I think long term, that's where we like to kind of push this data and maps, because especially developing countries, they don't have the capabilities and capacities to develop in this, and they need it now rather than in 10 years. Number one. And number two, infrastructure. Another developing country, the infrastructure is developing very fast. Population is concentrated in very high risk area like coastal cities. And that's where the losses are gonna double up, because you have concentration population, valuations going up, property valuation, and then you have infrastructure build up, which is not yet done with climate risk assessment before, and before building the infrastructure. So we need to address this right now. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Entella, for the presentation. Let's have our second winner the winner from the second problem statement, 013. Hiranda, please.
Good evening. It's been a fun day. It's my 3rd time on stage. Well, there isn't really a stage here, but luckily I'm not too short and not too tall, so you can see me. Lovely assistant at the back will be turning the slides. Thank you for that. So just moving on to the next slide, and we can pull them all down. I mean, there's a market problem in voluntary carbon markets, and we all know the Vera issue in the Guardian article. The market's fragmented, and we can shift down that space. So how do we address that? What are the benefits? And then we'll move to Q&A. So just moving to the next slide. There are 3 big problems in the carbon market, and we can run these. I'm going to make you work. Animation. You either love it or you hate it in PowerPoint. So fragmentation. There are multiple markets. There are multiple participants as well. 95% of the market's over the counter. There are multiple registries. That's getting worse because, I mean, new national registries are setting up. So it means the existing registries are increasing in number. You've got newer digital registries as well. So again, lots of registries, lots of participants, lots of markets emerging, and lots of individual services. And everyone speaks about blockchain as one ubiquitous technology. But actually, as we know, there are many blockchains, public and private included, and everyone has a view on what they prefer. So actually, most of what we see out there is walled gardened. And if you look at it, there's no real interoperability between blockchains, but actually we're kidding ourselves if we also think that APIs are going away anytime soon. I mean, there's banking systems out there running COBOL code in with 40-year-old plus systems with IBM mainframes, and that really isn't compatible with the era that we find ourselves in. So the solution to this has to be a combination of blockchain rails, and interoperability across blockchains, but also APIs. Moving on to, great, she's given up. You're tired, right? It's been a long day. Plus, I told you to get here an hour earlier than you should have in the morning. Avoided the queues. The second issue is integrity of markets. We speak about the Vera issue. Most monitoring, reporting, and verification is manual. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the last presentation actually talks about addressing that, but now with digital monitoring, reporting, and verification, there are multiple DMERVs emerging. This is great because, I mean, there's a recent climate conference in Nairobi, and it was a great conference, but some of the side events, I mean, there were some interesting comments emerging that the press were covering. Again, people tapping on trees using tape measures to measure hectares and hectares of forest, right? It's not, I mean, this is why we're in the situation we're in. The technology exists. I mean, we'll hear about it after me from my esteemed colleague, Ted, at the back, right? It exists to address this problem. There are multiple DMER players that we've announced, but the problem is, I mean, different registries have their own standards and they have their own MRV processes into them as well. But actually, there are lots of folk advocating some existing standards and newer standards as well. And there's a big debate with panels I go to, which one's right. But actually, do we have to make a choice? There should be a menu, there should be a toolbox. There can be a plethora of standards because what's right for you may not be right for Emmanuel, my colleague over there. And so what we decided to do, I mean, a year ago when in this market, we built a lot of infrastructure for digital assets, again, to address fragmentation with the API blockchain issue. But then we started to get various governments and players setting up markets approaching us saying, we want to set up a carbon exchange because we have software, we can enable exchanges in the cloud or otherwise. We kind of looked at this and said, well, it's a little bit like the cart before the horse, because if we look at this, the exchange is the easy part. I mean, exchange models have been electronic since the early 1990s. I've got an exchange background, but actually they're kind of walled gardens. No, they don't interconnect. I mean, it reminds me of kind of Nokia and Ericsson. We're not even at RIM and BlackBerry in the exchange space yet. I mean, let alone smartphones. So I mean, it surprises me how much legacy technology there is out there. So we said, on the one hand, actually, the supply might be in Kenya or elsewhere. The demand could be in Abu Dhabi, or it could be in Saudi as well. So why can't we have a distributed mechanism where there can be many exchanges, many registries, many services, and a collaborative interconnect? And again, with the supply issue, the supply is not the issue. I mean, again, I was with the Kenyan government, who are doing a great job. His Excellency launched the Africa Industrialization Conference, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto. And one of his team asked me, yeah, but how does your solution solve the problems that you've got with these really low value bad credits? I said, I haven't got a magic wand, first and foremost, but actually there is no market for those types of credits because the whole process end to end has been wrong. And I'm sure Ted will agree there at the back. So we said, but actually we can do the right thing going forward where we can employ those processes end to end and address that supply issue. So what does that mean? And I mean, again, we look at the verifiers, we look at the sustainability management systems, we look at the carbon registries. I mean, these sit outside our ecosystem, but again, we've had existing registries come to us. For example, Universal Carbon Registry in India. We've digitized their ledger for them, but actually, we say actually it doesn't matter what blockchain the registries are using. We should be able to integrate this. We should be able to map it downstream. But if those registries need a digitization solution because they're not blockchain savvy, then we can give them a ledger. But we're not forcing blockchain down anyone's throat. I mean, neutrality is important here. So those carbon registries, whether they're running their own ledger or by API, they're some of the traditional ones. I mean, some of the traditional ones don't even have APIs yet. I mean, some are emerging. That's how backward the market is. I mean, literally, and I was speaking to the Air Carbon guys or ACX here in Abu Dhabi. I was saying, okay, how do you bring credits into the market to sell them, right? I mean, it reminds me of I joined a brokerage desk in the early 1990s, and someone had a job and it was called swivel chair, right? So there's a system where the brokerage system orders were coming in from clients, and then you had the stock exchange system, and someone's job all day long was to kind of take orders, enter trades from one system to the other. It's exactly what's happening in the carbon markets at the moment, because to get credits out of ERA into ACX, this is what they're doing. And it's not because they don't have APIs. I mean, they've got one type of blockchain there as well, but they just don't have the choice. So we're saying in this day and age, I mean, it beggars belief that we have to go through these systems, and everyone says the market's broken. Why is it broken? It's pretty obvious, right? So again, we were fortunate when we looked at this market. We said, well, we had the existing infrastructure, but then ING came to us in July last year and said, we built this network that handles security tokens with the ability to kind of an escrow. Think of it like a SWIFT network between multiple custodians and multiple participants, and it was run under FCA Sandbox Cohort 6 successfully with a number of large banks like Citi, State Street, and also asset managers like Fidelity and Invesco. And they looked at this and said, look, one bank can't run a network for other banks. What do we do with this? We'd already built part of that solution for digital asset markets to connect many custodians, but we realized this could be quite powerful for carbon markets. And we made the acquisition. Now, why is it powerful? Because all of a sudden, what happens is with most blockchain custody or other offerings, someone has to transfer assets and you lose control of the asset. Even tokenization solutions like Toucan, when they try to tokenize the Vera credits, there's no automation between the two. Very quickly they're out of sync because I think it was swivel chair again, right? And even then, when you're bringing those tokens onto a blockchain, the registries are effectively losing control. If those tokens aren't then sold, they're left orphaned. There's no way of them getting back into the registries the way those processes are managed. And it's no different between with a number of registries that are manual. I mean, that's a big challenge because actually, why can't you have those tokens come into the market, be locked, so that the registries maintain control of the asset, which we do. The custodian, in terms of the updates and the registry records, and the custodians maintain control of the asset in terms of the value of the asset and what it has. And those like JP Morgan coin or the CBDCs coming, those that hold currency, and we can handle this for fiat as well, although it's not as seamless. Hold the fiat currency or whatever they're holding, and effectively there can be a delivery versus payment mechanism. Now, so we can lock the assets distributed at the front end and the back end, whereas most systems that say they're distributed are only distributed at the front end. At the back end, they're pretty much centralized. And this is some of the large custodian infrastructure offerings as well. So here now, everyone's got control of what they do in the process. Yeah, we can get certainty that the assets aren't going to overtrade, or aside from legal contracts or anything else. Now, where does the hub come in? Well, that's great. The decentralized custody wallet network and the asset settlement network. I mean, that solves a problem. It's a layer 2 blockchain network, and that's great, interacting with a number of public and private chains. We've made integrations into Ethereum and other Polygon R3 as well, which the CBDC is coming for. But the hub deals with the messaging on the traditional side into traditional custodians that are banks. I've been denied access. And then the markets. This is many to many because there can be many registries, many markets, many fiat custodians, as well as integrated into here, digital ones. And effectively, assets can be made available to trade, assets can be locked, assets can settle, the registries can be updated, and the custodians can exchange assets. Eventually, there's going to be interoperability between registries as well, because if you're a supplier in Kenya and I'm a buyer in the UAE, why should I be forced to register in your registry when I want the assets in my own registry as well? So again, technically, baby steps, and I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hirenda. Okay, the winner for problem statement 3, Evercom, Ted, please. Thank you.
Can we next? I mean, yeah, so we have the carbon registries here. Thank you. Oh, wow.
I'll share these slides as well.
Thank you, thank you.
No NDA.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm Ted from Evercom. We have actually been around for quite some times. And then the problem that we're dealing with, I think everyone is quite familiar with, is really how do we deal with greenwashing, specifically coming from Singapore, trying to be a green financial hub for the Southeast Asia region, Asia Pacific region. This is an issue that we believe that we can solve with technology. I started the company actually almost 10 years ago, but we have the luxury of time to be in universities with government research fund for the first 5 years. So that was pretty much a R&D stage. And later on, when I came out, then we have a lot of support. And the timing was just nice. I still remember when I started 8 years ago, people think I was running a charity when I tell them I'm doing sustainability analytics. But of course, in the recent 2 years, time has really changed. Just to quickly get into what do we do exactly. The whole idea is how can we verify emissions for organization level and even sometimes down to project level. And what we're working on now is even down to product level. And because of the regulations, the compliance, even in Europe, you have CBAM and all these, we do see now as a pressure to push companies to even disclose at the product level. But the problem is, again, back to data. Right. So the first product that we actually have a solution suites, but the first one that we focus on is really what we call as a next map. What it does is it map it to the most basic framework, which we follow ISO 14064. That's the only framework out there that can verify a GHG protocol. So we reference on that. And based on that, we quickly help companies compute their emission. And we choose ISO instead of all the other rest of the framework that you see out there, is because even in Asia, first of all, many of these manufacturing industrial groups are already comfortable with ISO. Second, many countries are already regulating, forcing companies to submit ISO report, because that's the only one that they see as a way to scale. Especially when you talk about countries like Thailand, they have 500,000 factories there. If we don't have an ISO standard that is proven, it's very difficult to run through the whole verification process. So that's why we work with ISO standards. And the second one we tie with that is NextMap start with self-uploaded data. And that one you still require human intervention to do some verification. But of course, you can speed it up as well. But more and more, we also directly, for those customers who are ready, we can also directly pull data from the sensors and IoTs and so on. Especially for the industrial group, one thing we discovered over the past few years is they actually have a lot of data directly operating on the floor. It's just about how to access them. And that portion took us a while to figure out how to get a majority of those data into our system so you can really fully automate this whole process. Just to, so usually we work with the industrial sites. Microsoft, Mitsubishi, I'll skip these marketing slides, but the most important thing is really, even for our systems, we have to fully go through the validation of ISO 14064 to make sure that whatever data that comes in as a calculator, we know what we are giving out that is correct. The only validation part now is is now resulted in the input. So as a validator, companies like Bureau Veritas, TUV, BSI, and so on, they just need to verify the input because they know the calculator works, but the input can be garbage. So that dramatically reduces the manual effort, even if you're talking about manual validation. Just to give you an example, this is actually the entire data supply chain. If you're talking about getting a single raw data down to generating carbon credits, convert that data emission reduction into carbon credits, this is actually the entire steps that we have to digitize. And across different stages, the problem is always the different stakeholders look for slightly different things, right? So this is the part that we really need to automate and align using ISO to help them with that. The financial institutions, the regulators, and even the carbon credits people, they are looking for different things. So instead of customers have to engage multiple consultants to answer to these questions, which is what they're doing now, we allow them to just run through us one time, and then we can use the same sets of results to address different stakeholders. This is how we dramatically speed up the whole verification process for them. Just to quickly show the platform, it can literally start with just uploading information very quickly. Once they upload, we actually automate the entire ISO 14064 reporting. We tied it to the correct emission factors, all these, so all the manual things that people don't want to do with, it's fully automated. The only thing left is for the auditor to come in to check whether you have uploaded the correct stuff with some evidence tied to it. It can be your electricity bills and so on. So that's really the first step that we do. But once they do this, this is when we can automate the whole ISO process. If they don't use us, they go directly to the certifier companies. The whole process can take at least a month. But if they go through our process and then using our process to engage these verifiers, the whole thing can get it done within 7 days. And you know, a lot of these certification companies, they charge by man-day. So there's a lot of savings, at least 50% can go through just with this. And you'll still get the same statements from Bureau Veritas, TUV, BSI, and so on. So from a customer perspective, that's when you really save time and simplify the matters. The next stage is for the bigger customers. They already have all these different systems in place. So one thing we learned over the years is we really need to learn how to work with these industrial groups. In Asia, we see there's the Americans, there's the Europeans, and there's the Japanese. China, not so much. So these are the three big players that really dominated the market already, from the even industrial commercial buildings, all the same. I'm sure you heard about Mitsubishi's. We started with them, but now we also be able to directly integrate with all these different brands and different systems. So what happened is, even we don't need customers to upload data anymore. If they're already using some of these systems in place, we can directly pull data from the sensors, we can directly pull data from their systems, or we can pull data from the open protocols. This dramatically helps us further streamline the whole automation piece of the reporting. So again, the whole idea is, how can we make sure all these data can come in almost in real time? And when the financial institutions give out a sustainability linked loan, for example, they can actually track the progress every month to know whether these companies are on track to deliver the kind of emission reduction that they say they were, and so on. So that's really where we're coming from, the automation piece. Just to give you an example, why we have to learn to work with the bigger players, just Mitsubishi alone, they already have more than 375,000 applications deployed. And these are all a lot of data, including Microsoft, all the offices, buildings data are already on their platform. So data, there's really plenty. It's just about how to get access to them. We learned that even because we're in Singapore, Singapore's largest property developer also uses their systems already. And they always tell us the US Pentagon uses their systems as well, right? So it's not about don't have enough data, but how to get those data. And that's why it's important to figure out how to integrate with this different system quickly. Once you integrate, I'll wrap it up with this part. The very interesting part is, now with real-time information coming in without human labor to verify and calculate, companies can really get down to, what is the carbon emission per production batch, right? Then this can really translate into influencing suppliers, or influencing even consumers' behavior, because you now exactly know what is the carbon footprint down to the product level. For properties, we know what is the carbon emission per buildings, and even down to what is the carbon emission per assets. And then we also have a database of all these assets. So when we work with some of the players who are using much older technology, we can easily using this to recommend them what are the next in line technology they can upgrade. And then with that, they can already generate the savings to pay for itself. So you don't need a consultant to go down to the middle of some factories in Thailand to do this kind of consulting work. As long as they connect it, we can right away automate this and bring in green financing and bring the technology provider to help them with this transition. And also logistic transportation is also a big emission contributor. So we also started to work a lot with a transportation company to calculate down to what is the carbon emission per vehicle or per trip. Again, all these information we see as the foundations to influence people to move towards transitioning. And also this will give good data to verify those carbon credits are really having emission reductions based on verified data. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is what we do. We pull data directly from the assets. We help facilitate green financing by doing assets upgrade. Even in Malaysia, for example, many places are still using boilers. Just to simply change boilers to heat pump, you can already save 40% of electricity and so on. So the technology is there. It's really about how to plan that in a larger scale and making sure you can verify those initiatives in a larger scale as well. So that's what we do in a nutshell, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ted. Now we'll pass the floor to Porya.
Sure. Thank you so much, Teresa and the solution providers. It was very exciting to hear all of this. So now moving forward, as ICLEI is one of the co-organizer of this event, we were looking into the solutions submitted, and one of them was actually a solution that ICLEI has the pleasure of being a partner to, which this partnership dates back to even before the Techsprint. And that was the most, one of the most city relevant type of solution, which is a very holistic solution, connects different dots together. For that reason, we have invited my lovely colleague and friend, Martin Meinestein, the CEO of Open Earth Foundation, to share their solution with us. Thank you, Martin, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Porya. I was told I would be able to connect here my iPad if it's possible, and I can show you something. Otherwise, I'll just walk through. I don't see any HDMI cable. Careful. So thank you, Porya. Maybe I'll start just with the microphone in and of itself and just my voice. It's such a pleasure to have joined the Techsprint, which is also funny, sort of like joint collaboration, as we've done collaborations also with the BIS in the past and with ICLEI. It was a great process. So if you know a little bit about Open Earth, our work is around open source digital infrastructure and data infrastructure. And we think very broadly in terms of systems thinking. And one of the things that led us to the product that we presented in this Techsprint City Catalyst came from almost the last 4 years on trying to build data infrastructure for the global stocktake and even for climate markets. And in the process, we realized that cities had the biggest gap in terms of greenhouse gas data. And so we realized, why is this? And let me see if I can actually show you a demo, or let me start with a presentation. It might be that I have to shift screens. 1 second. No. It's sort of like showing another screen of mine. I've never done it for my iPad. Oh, you got it, I think. I trust you. If you figure it out, go for it. I'm going to continue. Just keep the flow going. Thank you. And so we really around May this year. So it's not we are a 3-year-old organization, but in May this year, we decided that we've been doing like different projects all across the board, but we saw this fundamental problem in the city level. And I often describe that there's a reason why there's data gaps in cities, And it comes back to different reasons, like appropriate software tools. If we look at greenhouse gas accounting softwares in the corporate space, there's almost 100 venture-backed GHG software. In the city space, there's a spreadsheet, basically. So there's this massive gap, and the reason is because like funds don't properly flow to software for after we published the Open Climate platform. OpenClimate.network has got one of the largest amounts of pledge and emissions data across nations, regions, and cities. And so right after that, we decided to said, well, we need to build a tool that cities across the world could use to build greenhouse gas inventories. And so our first approach was just to focus on that, on solving the data gap, bringing next generation data solutions, particularly from satellites, and combining global and data providers. And there's a much that I can talk a little bit about the solution, but what we realized right away after talking with cities, and particularly with mayors, is that great, having more data is not necessarily solves the problem, because what they really care about is financing, right? And so the angle about this Techsprint is so relevant to the narrative, but also the fundamental need. And so what we realized is that to mobilize more finance for cities to deploy decarbonization projects, they need more data-driven, robust plans that they can take to the bank, or they can issue different instruments. But to do that, they also need the data. So if we were just trying to solve the data gap itself, we weren't really going to penetrate with the needs. So we really needed to connect data to plans to finance. Fundamentally, City Catalyst, and I could show a demo of it, is a very user-friendly, which is also something that GovTech doesn't necessarily have all the time, where you click, it connects different satellite data sources of GHG data points in your city, and it helps you address that. This is really the point that I was saying before, that we started to look at when we integrate multiple different remote sensing data sources and the city data sources. We are very excited about how AI is actually helping solve a lot of the data integration and harmonization process. But it's really the financing where it's the eye of the prize, right? So it's the fundable climate plans that lead to this, but it's this actionable gap of data that we really needed to solve. So this is a lot what the value chain of, let's say, IoT and remote sensing looks like for us. At the top of this is the large constellation of, I would love to do this, but I won't be able to do that. I'm like so excited. I'm like, oh, this is good. I wonder if it's coming from here. No worries. We take an image of planet Earth every day now. Planet Labs is one of the private constellations that does that, but there's other private constellations. So there's a lot of machine learning that we can derive and computer vision to get insights from that daily imaging of planet Earth. Out of that comes data products. Climate Trace obviously gets a lot of visibility sometimes because it's backed by Vice President Al Gore. Carbon Mapper maps methane. And so all these data products are coming up. Google EIE uses your phones and tracks your phones to deal with transport data. But that's far from what the city needs. So then what City Catalyst does is puts them all into the greenhouse gas protocol for cities, each sector, and simplifies that process. And then the second part, which is probably this, maybe my last slide, is it's the finance and execution that's key, right? We need projects on the ground. But for that, cities obviously connect with ICLE and all the disclosure bodies. There's really good support. Whereas when it comes down to data preparation and inventory, as I said, there's a spreadsheet. We have to connect this data to planning software, and planning software to finance software, and finance software into, there's not really good execution software. And that's, spoiler alert, there's a lot of work to do around building good tools and softwares for cities to do procurement, to do RFPs. Fortunately, I just deals really well with tech, so there's a lot of possibility to disrupt this sector. So we starting from the first gap, and then working with multiple other software data providers. So what we're trying to do is sort of like an interoperability app store for cities to run through this journey. And if you've ever I don't know where you do your taxes, but in the United States, there's this famous TurboTax. You just like click, click, click. It connects with your bank data, sends everything to the IRS in the right format. That's the type of solutions that we need. So that's the type of logic that we think about how a city should go through the process, and all of that aligned in a GIS-based software that then goes to project developers, that goes to the bank, actually, I'll show this slide at the end. Once we have all this inventory data, then it just connects with that planning software, because then it's really that facility level project portfolio where things have to really go into sort of the bottom line of project financing and city climate action. So that insight that happened in May really accelerated our engineering effort, and the tech sprint got us to get this out of the door in an actual demo. Let me see if it's if I can share this. Does it work? Oh, here you go. Let's pick a city. I did Abu Dhabi because it was relevant. We could probably do it again. So we pick Abu Dhabi. We pick the year that we want to create an inventory. We save and continue. I confirm the vector for the city, confirm and continue. And now click, click, click. We're going to start the profile for this inventory for that year. It's not just about the first year, right? We need to do inventories almost like every year, because it's how we track and monitor progress. I had clearly already uploaded some data, stationary energy. So I had connected multiple different data sources that actually provide Abu Dhabi information. Transportation, I can go in and click add data to the sector. Here's our data providers, right? So Climate Trace uses aviation emission data from satellite and from airport data sets. So you can connect this data. EDGAR is a road transportation emission database. We also connect with that. So we expect this data marketplace to grow significantly. We want to incentivize and bring a lot of data providers, put them, and then particularly, these are all free data sets. The next one we're loading here with Planet Labs is like paid data sets to track point source emission. You're using new hyperspectral satellites that are launching next year. You have to pay for it if you want to use it. Or above ground biomass calculation for forests that uses a lot more sophisticated tools. So putting that into a shopping list that you just purchase all these data products and then move forward. I'm going to stop there. I'm also going to have to jump into another event. Unfortunately, it's been a crazy jumping around from COP, but it's been really a pleasure being part of this tech sprint, and I look forward to the next process. Actually, one of the things that's very valuable for us is earlier in May we were invited here by the UAE to present some of our work, and we realized that actually the cities here in UAE didn't have an updated inventory. So we're organizing a roundtable on the 6th with local UAE partners saying, hey, whatever city is hosting COP should have all the technology and all the data and all the planning, and let's set that a standard for that. So I think I don't want to put anyone here on the spot, but if there's a stipend that's part of the tech sprint, we're going to use that to actually fund the UAE digital pilot and then set the stage for next COP29. We don't know which city will be COP29, but like our commitment is for every host city to have updated inventories, updated plans, and that should never be, we're all here. There's like 400,000 people here. We should put all of our energies and efforts to turn the city, the host city, into being ready for tackling climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin. Obviously, as we also mentioned at the beginning, all these 15 solutions were really great, and it was really hard from at least me personally perspective to say who's the winner. But the great job that BIS did, putting all these 15, because probably if different judges, different result would be there. But this is obviously one of the very important solution related to cities that we are supportive of it. Martin, what you're doing is really impactful, and from ICLEI side, we really support that and looking forward to scaling that. And that T-shirt that you see is that's the mark. I have the honor of having one of them. I've been graduated to Open Earth Foundation Academy, if you wish. But thank you so much for this. I would like to yield the floor back to Teresa for the closing remarks.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for the presentation from our winners of the COP28 UAE Techsprint. I think the winners and also judges may come up to the stage for a photo. Is that? Thank you very much.
They felt to the catering didn't bring it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thanks a lot.
Pass it back.